Hello. Today I'm pleased to speak today with Olga Trofimtseva, if I'm pronouncing it right.
You are doing well.
Ambassador at large of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. And we would like to talk today about the war and the impact of the agriculture production. So let me start from the fact that before the war, Ukraine was in the third place in terms of export of the agriculture products to European Union. Surprisingly, even the China. So the war stopped the dynamic development radically, and if in your country, what's at the moment the situation is?
Yeah, thank you first of all for having me. It's a great pleasure to talk about such an important issue. And if we, as we see, in fact, this topic and this issue is important not only for Ukrainian farmers, not only for Ukrainian agricultural sector, but in general, globally. Many people now are very attentively looking at what's going on with Ukrainian grain production, grain export, etc. As you rightly said, we've been very good on the track with in agricultural trade and agricultural exports towards European Union, but not only. And yes, European Union was always #2 destination for Ukrainian agricultural products, including grain, oilseeds, sunflower oil, etc., but also other kind of the products. Well, and by the way, for us, situation during this already 10 months of war is a little bit different than from the perspective of the European Union. From the perspective of Ukraine, the European Union has become their number one destination of exports for Ukrainian agri-food products, and we even see a slight increase in percentage. The last figures, unfortunately, which I have right now, as for exports towards European Union, it's for 8 months, first 8 months of 2022. But even these 8 months, show us that the exported products for more than $7 billion towards the European Union. I mean, agricultural and food products. So this slight increase of exports towards European Union countries and European Union becoming the number one trade partner for us is explained by very simple fact. We know that since the beginning of war, the seaports of Ukraine in the Black Sea region, seaports of Odessa, but also Mykolaiv, for instance, and such ports like Mariupol, Berdyansk, etc., in Azov Sea, they were blocked by the hostilities. They were blocked by active war actions and by Russian military, and that's why their Ukrainian agri-food exports also were looking, in fact, or Ukrainian producers were looking, and as you know, with help, with assistance, great assistance from European Union, from Poland, first of all, they established so-called solidarity lanes, so this on-ground ways of export of agri-food products. And well, what we have right now, yes, we have grain corridor, which is working since end of July of 2022, but in parallel we see the growing volumes which are exported mostly towards European Union through these solidarity lanes with a railway and with trucks on the roads. We will see how the situation or how the whole picture for the year 2022 will look like, but at the moment, if again coming back to your question, question if we're talking about the exports towards European Union. So for agri-food products, the situation is it's quite good. And the second factor, which I should name, definitely is also important, and which impacted this slight growth of the numbers from Ukraine, export numbers from Ukraine towards European Union in agri-food. This is the abolition of the tariff and non-tariff measures within our free trade agreement, within our association agreement between Ukraine and European Union. It definitely helped. For instance, I can say you that what we've seen in August and October, in September of this year, this is the growth of export of dairy products to European Union countries, some other categories. That means that definitely this step from the European Union side helped Ukrainian producers to export more products which normally were constrained by import tariff quotas, which are introduced within their free trade agreement. So the situation is not so bad, and we're really thankful, as I said, first of all, to Polish colleagues, because this is trans-border cooperation, and trans-border actions are very important to help to assist with export. And Ukraine is still producing and exporting its grain and oilseeds mostly, again, to the not only to European Union countries but worldwide. And well, I hope that also the grain corridor, but also not only grain corridor, but also these solidarity lanes, this European Union will continue to work effectively.
I'm glad that something moved and that everything was unblocked in the ports. But do you think there is any other help you could get from European Union countries to help even more to export products?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. You know, as for unblocking the ports, you know that this grain corridor, as I said, it's working since end of July 2022, and it works quite effectively, I must say. We exported through this grain corridor from 3 seaports of Big Odessa, so-called Big Odessa, more than 10 million tons already, more than, if I'm not mistaken, more than 500 ships loaded with grain came out of these ports during this time. And that means that, seaports, it's absolutely, I mean, we cannot compare on ground export ways and seaports, and sea logistics, because only one ship can be can transport I don't know, 30,000 tons or even 60,000 tons of grains, and to have such a volume of export with train or with trucks, you need much more efforts, you know, and then logistics becomes definitely more expensive. What can be done more? First of all, we are talking on the one hand about support of prolongation of this grain corridor in the seaports. So European Union is still supporting Ukrainian position and is talking about and supporting us in these negotiations together with Turkey and United Nations, because everybody, I think, is aware that without sea transportation of Ukrainian grain, without the sea exports, the situation with food security in some regions and prices, grain prices in many regions could be really critical. And if we're talking about the exports toward the European Union itself, it's definitely there are, you know, I must say that here we are talking about the both sides work. First of all, from the European Union, we really hope from the European Union side that so these barriers, trade barriers, tariffs, tariff rate quotas will be eliminated not only for 1 year, but this action will be prolonged, hopefully. But at the same time, we know that Ukraine, despite the war, we should also work on our own so-called home tasks, because this trade regime, this free trade agreement and association agreement, were about the approximation of Ukrainian legislation in agri-food sector. So Ukraine should also come closer to the European Union regulations in this field to be, as competitive as it possible. Secondly, to produce under the more or less same regulations and framework conditions as this Polish or German or French or whoever else farmers are doing in the European Union. By the way, I know that also very practical thing just happened last week. We had another round of negotiations between the Ukrainian and Polish colleagues from ministries of infrastructure, from ministries of agriculture, if I'm not mistaken, and we discussed the possibility of introduction of these mutual border controls, which we are talking about already like for 10 years again. As far as I know, and now I think it's a good point to bring these negotiations to some sort of real progress, because the introduction of such mutual border controls in phytosanitary checks, in custom checks, in veterinary checks, it can help. It can help really to accelerate the border procedures, because, you know, I'm absolutely sure that you also hear it from the Polish side and from Polish transport companies, logistic companies, that this is the complaint number one among the exporters, importers, etc., that we are waiting too long in the lines at the border controls, mostly from the Ukrainian side. So it means to enter the European Union, it's still problematic. And we don't know, I'm not sure exactly if there the problem exactly is on the Ukrainian side of the customs, or is it too rigorous custom procedures from the European Union side. But, you know, also from the history of Poland's accession to European Union in 2004, that mutual border inspections, these German officials and experts helped a lot to learn faster and to include Poland faster in this joint European system. So, and Ukraine now, as an official candidate to the membership of the in the European Union, should also be, I think, a part of such kind of their schemes, and do at the same time, as I said, its homework and work on the legislation, on the as far as possible. Definitely, it's quite difficult. This in the war, it's clear, but nevertheless, I know that our parliament and our cabinet of ministers, they are really working now on some of the legislative acts, on laws, on regulations, which should bring the Ukrainian regulated field in agri-food sector closer to the European practices.
So hopefully they could work out some mechanism to make this work properly and easier for you and for the custom. It must be very stressful time at the moment. And can you tell me if there is any problems at the moment with the food production for the farmers to cultivate the lands? If they have enough storage place in the warehouses?
Yeah, in general, I mean, answering your first question, I was quite positive, yeah, that the production is still going on. We're still exporting a lot, it's clear, because we are producing much more than we need for our domestic market. It was always so. The Ukrainian agri-food sector is very export-oriented. But to tell the truth, I will be very honest with you, the situation is quite critical in Ukrainian agriculture right now. And there are several reasons for this situation, which are caused clearly by Russian aggression. The reason number one is that when we are talking about storage, yeah, the situation is still, it's better already than it was, because the exports are going on. And that means that we do have now storage capacities available, but the shortage is there nevertheless. The shortage is there for the small farmers, which are working, some there, for instance, in eastern northern part of Ukraine, far from border, far from, again, from city ports, you know, so some there are really in the direction to the Russian border, because to bring their grains to their export, it's more difficult task. It's more complicated task to do so, and that's why it was a great help also from our partners like FAO, like other donor organizations, USAID, and some European countries also helped to buy these temporary storages for Ukrainian farmers, mostly for small farmers, for medium-sized farmers, to store the grains at least for several months before they will be able to sell it abroad or at the domestic market. The second, related to the first problem, is that unfortunately, due to these problems with exports and due to the this bottleneck of the export, both in a sea ports and also, as I said before, with railway and truck exports towards European Union, we see that logistics is now very expensive from the Ukrainian fields or storages towards any country like Spain or even Poland, by the way. And that's why Ukrainian farmers are getting very low prices for their grains, because it's clear that traders and exporters, they are like in all the countries, you know, the farmers are the ones who normally bear all that difficulties of the market, and so our Ukrainian farmers are getting now lower prices than the prices are normally are at the market, and that means for them that in some cases we even don't cover their cost of production of this grain, and that makes situation more difficult, not only for Ukraine, by the way, because what we've seen already right now this year, that the planting area of the winter crops is lower, something like 30% than it was in previous year, 2021. That means that there will be less winter wheat, winter rapeseed, canola next year, and other winter crops. Because Ukrainian farmers, first of all, okay, the problem is that why the planting area is less 30% than in previous year. It's because of the occupation, it's because of the active hostilities. In some regions you just cannot plant anything, you know, you cannot work on the fields because the fields are mined, because you have artillery some there, you have just the hostilities on their way, And the second reason is the farmers are not sure if we don't get the money just to go ahead with their work. We don't get enough money to just provide the activities for this winter planting season. We just better stay and do maybe nothing when to plant any kind of crops for this winter. And that brings us also to the critical situation in the next season, because we don't know how a situation will look like if the war won't stop. So it means that situation will be even more difficult for Ukrainian farmers. So I cannot, for instance, now say you or make some forecast how much area will be, how many million hectares will be sown, will be planted in the spring under the corn, under the spring wheat, spring canola, and other products which are normally under the sunflower seeds, which are normally produced by Ukrainian farmers. So the situation is really not simple for Ukrainian farmers. And that's not only about storages. This war has, as I call it, this negative chain reaction effect. When you have the problem of the negative effect of this war at one place, in the economy or in such a complex sector like agri-food sector, you have the effects when to other subsectors, to all participants in this chain till the consumers, for instance, and because of the last this rocket missile attacks, on an infrastructure, for instance. That's also again. The problem is that if you have some missile attacks on their energetic infrastructure near your silos, and you need energy, you need electricity for your silos to put in work, because the storage isn't possible without the energy inputs. Well, it makes it also difficult right now, even if you have storage capacities, how you can store your grain there without losing the quality of the grain, because if the electricity, if the gas supply is not there, if something going wrong with the energy supply, so for drying of the grain of corn, for instance, well, it could be problematic. So as you see, there is a bunch of such problems for Ukrainian farmers right now, but to make it more positive, I must say that despite all these problems, what we see in Ukraine, that farmers are still working, and majority of them, I've even seen just day before sort of small survey among Ukrainian farmers. What are we gonna do in this season? And I must say that only 10% of the active farmers right now said that we don't want to plant any winter crops. Other farmers, other 90%, maybe less, maybe in the same acreage, but we continue to work. And even in animal production, by the way, where the situation is sometimes even more difficult, because these animals, you cannot, for instance, with energy absence, you cannot say to your cows, girls, just wait a couple of days till the energy will be again there. When can I milk you? I can milk you. Yeah? So you should provide some sort of alternative energy sources, or even milk these hens maybe one day, because you cannot stop this production processes. You cannot stop cows from producing milk. Despite all these critical problems, which sometimes you cannot even imagine how it looks like to work within war conditions, Ukrainian farmers are still working, and as I said, as I said, the vast majority of them, we don't want to give up.
That's a good news. And you know, the Russians, they are very aware of the importance of agricultural production of Ukraine, how key factor it is for the security of the country and for the security of the Europe and world, basically. So do you still okay, the ports are unblocked, but do you have any attacks to make your life harder in terms of producing and exporting?
Deliberately or especially on agricultural objects, I wouldn't say so. In some cases, we've seen in stories or some stories from farmers in Kharkiv region, in Lugansk region, when when Russians come in, we're just, the problem is that we are behaving like real terrorists. In some cases, we cannot even understand why we're doing something like that. I mean, why we're killing, for instance, animals like cows. In one of the largest milk producers in Kharkiv region was just I don't know, we stole everything and we just killed cows just for fun, as it seems. I mean, cows wouldn't be danger, for Russian military, but they nevertheless did that. And if we're talking in more general sense, yes, I think that Russia knows about the importance of agriculture for Ukraine, and we know also that grain, it's also very valuable commodity worldwide. And you maybe even seen the last one of the last investigations of the international journalists, which was published in Bloomberg also just a couple of days ago, maybe, that Ukraine, as it seems, lost more than $1 billion due to stolen and looted grain. Because Russians, what we are doing, we're not only continue to do this missile attacks on all the objects, not only agricultural, but in general infrastructural objects, which are also important for, could be important for Ukrainian agricultural transportation, logistic towards the border, and for the domestic transportation. But what we are doing in the occupied regions like Zaporizhia Oblast, like Kherson Oblast, they occupied, but we've heard such kind of stories in Lugansk, in Donetsk Oblast, in Kharkiv Oblast. They just stealing, we are looting our grain, and we are bringing it with ships towards third countries. We are trying to fool everybody. We are trying to use these ships without transponders, so you cannot track them, etc. But there are satellite images which clearly show that it's not for the first time, by the way, that international investigators already have shown that Russians are doing that, and the losses for Ukrainian agri-food sector in general, by the way, estimated since the beginning of war, the direct losses. It's like $6 up to $7 billion. It's only direct losses. Indirect losses, this is including that lost profits, stolen or looted grain, etc. It's already more than $34 billion. You can just imagine. It's I don't know. It's huge. It's huge figure. It's very high, and I just hope that that Russian terrorists, that Russian also companies, state companies who are participating in all this, that they understand that after the war, we will pay the reparations as the Germans did after the Second World War too.
Hopefully. Hopefully you're right. And do you think that in terms of what's happening at the moment with the food security, do you think that the European New Green Deal regulations are a little bit too harsh and difficult to meet at the moment?
I think that you know, the new Green Deal, I think that you have also a lot of critics on it in Poland. I'm sure about that, because I see even in Germany, many farmers are saying that all these regulations and the standards and ecologic standards and attempts to dispose like that, they use, for instance, of the chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers, etc. They're really harsh and they are quite difficult in some cases to follow. And it's not only the question that they are too hard, yeah, or too tough for farmers. The question is always, who is going to pay for that? Because we know that if all these Green Deal requirements should be implemented in a short-term perspective, well, in this case, the prices for food, the prices for agri-food products from the European Union countries, we will be so high that no consumer like you and me will be available just to buy them. Yeah, the normal consumers, for normal consumers, it will be too expensive. And if we're talking about the approximation of Ukraine to these requirements, to this regulations and Green Deal in general, I must say that I think after the start of the war, and I've heard such kind of statements and thoughts from the European Commission representatives, starting up with Ursula von der Leyen as a president of the European Commission, the statements were, well, yes, we should now think about how we can combine wisely the food security issue and this Green Deal and more strict ecological requirements, more strict ecological and climate adaptation, let's say, framework conditions for our producers. Because everybody has seen, I think almost everybody has seen, and after the start of the Russian war in Ukraine, that the situation with the food security is not so simple. And when we're talking about Ukraine as already candidate or future member of European Union, we should think about such a system of the European agri-food sector that on the one hand, we can produce enough food for everybody and for export to earn additional money. But first of all, to provide food for our own citizens, for citizens of European Union countries, and to secure the food security at its base, in fact, yeah. And on the other hand, yes, we should think about the climate adaptation, because I know that in Poland you also see these changes, yeah, in climate and in weather conditions. In Ukraine we see it as well, and you cannot ignore it. You should do something about that. You should do something about the biodiversity. Definitely, we should do something about the water access. We should do something about the soil quality in Ukraine. It's also a great issue, and we know that. And by the way, after the war, it will be even their bigger issue. You can imagine that what kind of ecological problems we are going to have because of this artillery, because of everything, in fact. Yeah, so with fuel from the military machinery, from the tanks, how many mines are still on Ukrainian fields. So the problems are huge here. And so coming back again, so altogether, it's really about it could be about Green Deal, but in more complex view and in more like, I don't know, wider understanding of this Green Deal. Yeah, so how we can do it without bringing in danger the food security of our own citizens, and we should think about the food security in the whole world, because we know that again, coming back, everywhere is a chain reaction. Everything is interrelated. And we see if we are getting less grain in a short term, just like that, from Ukraine, or what we are getting in Africa, in some countries of poorest countries of Africa, we are getting there unrest, social unrest, because people have nothing to eat. We have no money to pay for the food. And what's going on? What we see the rising flow of refugees from African countries, again, towards European Union, for instance. So this issue is really complex and really not so simple. My short answer would be on that. So there is not like short and simple decisions for that, and that's why I think it would be one of the greatest fields of work and dialogue and discussion, including, by the way, CO2 certificates, CO2 trade, and the CO2 sequestration in agriculture, etc., between Ukraine and European Union, in a way, on Ukrainian way to accession European Union.
Yeah, we need to find the balance, how to
absolutely,
make it work.
Absolutely.
Because there is extremists from both sides, and then, but it must be now a little bit level up to find the solution.
This is the same discussion. I don't know how this discussion looks like in Poland, but in Germany, for instance, there is a I must say quite a hard discussion between animal rights activists and farmers. Yeah, and some animal rights activists are like saying that I don't know, farmers are killers of animals and something like that, and they're just criminals, etc. And this is a complete false picture, yeah, which is yes, we should think about their animal health, we should think about animal welfare, absolutely clear. There are also high standards, and there are also the topics where Ukraine is very actively working on, but here again should be a sort of balance and not such kind of the criminalization of farming. It's absolutely nonsense.
We need to remember that we have to feed the world.
Absolutely,
first. Yes, that's right. Climate is very important, but we have to remember about this. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that situation with the war will be sorted soon, as the easiest and the best possible way for you in Ukraine. I know it's huge strategy, and you can't forget about this anymore, and you cannot vanish from the past what's happened. But fingers crossed that everything will go smooth now, as possible it is for you. And all the best, lots of strength. You the best. You really doing great work, and that long you are able to actually face that situation. So
thank you, Karolina, and thank you. Actually, I want to thank once more to all the Polish people and Polish government, because you know that you helped us a lot, and you really you acted in this situation as our brothers and sisters, and that's something also that we would never forget, I think, in Ukraine. So thank you very much for this support, for support of our refugees, and for all the support within the European Union, and your very strong position, because you are among the countries who said from very beginning everything clear, very clear, and without any kind of compromises or something like that. So thank you very much to all the Polish people for that.
We have to help each other, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.